Sophia was a young and confident woman who had built her company from the ground up. She was the CEO of BrightMind Global, a fast-growing technology firm that created smart software for international businesses. Her sharp thinking and fearless attitude had earned her fame in the business world. Many people admired her, but there were also whispers that success had made her proud. She was known for being strict and serious, never wasting time on small talk with her employees. It was a bright Monday morning when Sophia stepped out of her tall glass building, holding her laptop bag in one hand and her phone in the other. She was dressed in a neat white suit and walked quickly toward the black luxury car waiting for her. Today was one of the most important days of her career. She had a meeting with investors from several countries who were interested in a billion-dollar partnership with her company. If the deal went well, BrightMind Global would become one of the most powerful firms in the technology industry. When Sophia reached the car, she noticed a tall man standing beside it. He was dressed in a clean driver's uniform with a name badge that said Daniel. He looked calm and polite. He opened the car door for her and greeted her with a soft smile. "Good morning, ma'am. I'll be driving you today," Daniel said in a respectful tone. Sophia looked at him for a moment and nodded without smiling. Her usual driver, Mr. Harris, was on leave that day. She didn't like changes in her routine, especially not on such an important morning. She stepped inside the car and began checking her presentation slides on her laptop. As the car started moving, Daniel adjusted the mirror and drove smoothly through the busy streets. He could see the tall buildings of the city reflecting in the glass windows around them. He didn't speak much, only asking politely if she wanted the air conditioner adjusted or soft music played. Sophia answered without looking up from her screen. "No, just drive," she said shortly. Daniel nodded and continued in silence. Sophia's thoughts were full of the meeting. She needed to impress investors from Japan, France, and Nigeria. She knew that the translators arranged by the company would help with communication, but she still worried that small misunderstandings could cause trouble. Business deals like this required clear explanations, and any mistake could cost millions. While she worked on her laptop, Daniel noticed her reading the names of the investors. He recognized a few of them from international news articles. After a while, he spoke gently. "You'll be meeting Mr. Kenji from Japan, Mr. Pierre from France, and Mr. Musa from Nigeria, right?" Sophia looked up, surprised that her driver knew the names. "Yes, how do you know that?" she asked with a curious but slightly proud tone. Daniel smiled. "I read about it this morning. It was in the business news. It seems like a very big deal for your company." Sophia gave a small laugh. "Oh, you read business news too? That's quite something for a driver," she said with a teasing smile. Daniel did not seem offended. He simply nodded and said, "Yes, ma'am. I like learning new things every day." Sophia turned her eyes back to her laptop. She didn't think much about his reply. To her, he was just a driver doing his job. After almost an hour of driving, they reached the Grand Orion Hotel where the meeting was scheduled. It was a tall, modern building with large glass doors and golden lights inside. Daniel parked the car near the entrance and stepped out quickly to open the door for her. Sophia stepped out, checking her watch. "Wait here. I'll be back after the meeting," she said in a firm voice. Daniel bowed his head slightly. "Of course, ma'am. I'll be right here if you need me." Sophia walked into the hotel confidently. The meeting room was large with a long glass table and country flags placed in front of each investor's seat. The investors greeted her politely. Translators stood beside them ready to help. At first, everything seemed fine. Sophia gave her presentation with confidence. She talked about BrightMind's new artificial intelligence software, its profits and its plans for global growth. But soon, small misunderstandings started appearing. The French investor, Mr. Pierre, misunderstood one of the figures and thought his company would get fewer shares than promised. The translator tried to explain but used the wrong words. Mr. Pierre's tone became unhappy. Then Mr. Musa, the Nigerian investor, misheard a technical point and believed Sophia's company would take control of one of his local projects. He frowned and started asking sharp questions. Sophia tried to calm everyone, but things became more confusing. The translator for the Japanese investor also made a mistake, turning a friendly comment into a formal disagreement. The atmosphere in the room grew tense. Sophia could feel sweat on her hands. Her dream deal was slowly falling apart because of simple language problems. She took a short break and stepped outside the meeting room, feeling worried. She called her assistant. "The translators are making mistakes. We're losing control of this deal," she said in frustration. Her assistant tried to reassure her, but Sophia hung up and took a deep breath. She looked around the hotel lobby, trying to think of a solution. That was when she noticed Daniel sitting quietly near the car outside, reading something on his phone. She walked toward him, still looking serious. "Daniel, get the car ready. We might go back to the office soon," she said. Daniel stood up quickly. "Of course, ma'am. But is everything all right with the meeting?" Sophia shook her head. "No, the translators are mixing things up. The investors are confused. The deal is going to fail." Daniel looked thoughtful for a moment, then said softly, "Maybe there's still a way to fix it." Sophia gave a tired laugh. "Unless you can magically speak 9 languages, I don't think so." Daniel smiled calmly and said, "Actually, I can speak 9 languages." Sophia froze for a moment. She thought he was joking, but his face looked serious and calm. "What did you say?" she asked. "I said I can speak 9 languages, ma'am," Daniel repeated in a gentle voice. "Maybe I can help if you allow me." Sophia stared at him in disbelief. The man she had teased that morning was now offering something that could save her deal. "You're serious?" she asked again. "Yes, ma'am," Daniel said. "I studied linguistics before I started driving. I know French, Japanese, Mandarin, Yoruba, Arabic, Spanish, and a few others. I can help translate if you need." For a few seconds, Sophia could not speak. She felt embarrassed remembering how she had laughed earlier, but she also felt a spark of hope. "All right, Daniel. Come with me," she said finally. "Let's see if you can help." Daniel followed her inside the hotel. When they entered the meeting room again, the investors looked surprised to see a driver walking in. Sophia introduced him quickly. "This is Daniel. He will help with translations." The investors looked unsure, but Daniel greeted them in their own languages, one after another. His pronunciation was perfect. The room fell silent for a moment, then smiles appeared on their faces. Mr. Pierre spoke to him in French, and Daniel answered smoothly. Mr. Kenji asked something in Japanese, and Daniel replied politely. Mr. Musa spoke in Yoruba, and Daniel responded with warmth and clarity. Sophia watched with amazement as the atmosphere in the room completely changed. The confusion started to clear. The investors began to laugh and relax. Daniel's calm tone and clear translations helped them understand each other perfectly. Sophia sat down quietly, her eyes still on Daniel. She felt both amazed and humbled. The man she had judged by his uniform was the reason her billion-dollar deal might be saved. The room that had felt tense and heavy only an hour ago now felt warm and full of energy. Daniel stood near the center of the table, speaking calmly in different languages with confidence. His voice was clear, steady, and full of respect. Every time one of the investors said something in their language, Daniel listened carefully, then turned to Sophia and explained their words in simple English. Sophia watched silently at first. Her mind was filled with surprise and relief. She could not believe what she was seeing. Just a few hours ago, she had looked at Daniel as nothing more than a driver. Now that same man was saving her most important business deal. The investors began to relax. Mr. Pierre from France smiled as Daniel translated his concerns perfectly. Finally someone understands what I mean," he said in French. And Daniel translated his words for everyone. Then Daniel turned to the Japanese investor, Mr. Kenji, who had been quiet for most of the meeting. Daniel spoke in polite Japanese, using careful words and respectful gestures. Mr. Kenji's face brightened. "You speak Japanese so well," he said, smiling warmly. Daniel bowed slightly. "Thank you, sir. I studied your language for 5 years," he said, then turned to translate for Sophia. Mr. Musa from Nigeria, who had earlier been upset, now laughed heartily. "This man speaks Yoruba better than some people from my hometown," he said with a big smile. The other investors joined in the laughter, and the tension melted away. Sophia could hardly believe her eyes. The meeting that had been falling apart was now going smoothly, and it was all because of Daniel's skill, patience, and calmness. She noticed how he treated every person in the room with respect. He never raised his voice. He never looked proud or nervous. He simply spoke with kindness and made everyone feel comfortable. As Daniel continued translating, Sophia began to understand more about him. There was something special in the way he carried himself. He had the confidence of a man who knew his value but didn't need to show it off. Every word he spoke made people listen. Every gesture he made built trust. After a few hours, the investors finally nodded in agreement. They had understood everything clearly now. The misunderstandings were gone and everyone seemed satisfied with the terms of the deal. Sophia took a deep breath and smiled for the first time that day. "Thank you, gentlemen, for your patience," she said. "I believe we can now move forward together." Mr. Pierre smiled and said, "It is because of your translator that we could understand so well. He is truly talented." Sophia glanced at Daniel, feeling a wave of gratitude. "Yes, he is," she said softly. The meeting ended with handshakes and cheerful conversations. The investors signed the preliminary documents and Sophia's billion-dollar deal was saved. Everyone in the room seemed happy. After the investors left, Sophia turned to Daniel. "I don't know how to thank you. You saved my company today," she said sincerely. Daniel smiled humbly. "I'm just glad I could help, ma'am." Sophia looked at him curiously. "You said you studied linguistics. Where did you study?" "I studied at a university in South Africa," Daniel replied. "I always loved learning about languages and cultures. After my studies, I worked as a translator for some years, then later joined a transportation company. I've been driving since then." Sophia was surprised. "With your skills, you could have worked anywhere. Why did you become a driver?" Daniel looked thoughtful. "Sometimes life doesn't go the way we plan. I had some family responsibilities and I needed a stable job quickly. Driving allowed me to work with flexible hours. It gave me time to help my younger siblings with their studies." Sophia listened quietly. She could hear the honesty in his voice. There was no bitterness, no complaint, only calm acceptance and quiet strength. She felt something change inside her. She had always believed that success came from power and confidence. But Daniel showed her something different. He had no office, no fancy title, yet he carried himself with dignity. He respected everyone and never judged. That was real strength. As they left the hotel, Sophia walked beside him instead of ahead. It was a small gesture, but it showed how her attitude toward him had changed. When they reached the car, she opened her own door before Daniel could do it for her. He noticed, but said nothing, only smiled. On the way back to the office, the city lights were starting to shine. The streets were full of cars, but the silence inside the car was peaceful. Sophia closed her laptop and looked out of the window, thinking about everything that had happened. After a few minutes, she spoke softly. "Daniel, you really surprised me today." Daniel glanced at her through the mirror and smiled. "In a good way, I hope." "In the best way," she said. "I think I learned something very important." Daniel didn't ask what it was. He simply nodded. "Every day teaches us something new, ma'am." Sophia smiled. "Please call me Sophia. After today, I think we can skip the formal titles." Daniel laughed lightly. "All right, Sophia." For the first time, she felt comfortable talking with someone who was not from her usual business circle. She asked him more about his life. Daniel told her stories about his childhood, how he had learned his first foreign language from a neighbor who spoke French, and how he had later practiced with tourists he met near his home. He also told her how language had helped him understand people's emotions better, because sometimes what people mean is more important than what they say. Sophia listened carefully. She realized that Daniel had a kind of wisdom that could not be learned in business school. His words were simple, but they carried deep meaning. When they reached the company building, Sophia didn't step out immediately. She sat in the car for a moment and looked at Daniel. "You know, Daniel, I think you should not stay a driver forever. You have a gift. You should be doing something bigger." Daniel smiled humbly. "Thank you, Sophia. Maybe someday. For now, I'm just doing my best in the place I am." Sophia nodded. "Still, I want to see you again. Maybe you can help my company with international communication. We could use someone who understands people as well as you do." Daniel's eyes brightened a little. "I would be happy to help in any way I can." Sophia smiled and stepped out of the car. She turned before walking inside and said, "Thank you again, Daniel. You didn't just save a deal today. You taught me something important about respect." Daniel nodded politely. "You're welcome, Sophia. Have a good evening." As she walked toward the building, Sophia felt lighter. For the first time in a long while, she felt humbled and inspired. She realized that true success was not only about power or position. It was about how a person treated others, no matter their role or background. Inside her office, she looked at the city skyline from her window. The billion-dollar deal was safe, but more importantly, her heart felt different. She knew she had changed that day. Somewhere outside, Daniel drove away quietly into the evening traffic, unaware that his simple act of kindness and skill had touched the life of one of the most powerful businesswomen in the city. The next morning, Sophia arrived at her office earlier than usual. The memory of the previous day was still fresh in her mind. Every time she thought about how Daniel had saved her billion-dollar deal, she felt a strange mix of gratitude and embarrassment. She had been proud and dismissive toward him at first, but he had shown nothing but respect and calmness. She sat in her glass office, looking at the city skyline. The sunlight reflected on the tall buildings, reminding her how fast life could change. She took a deep breath and decided she wanted to do something meaningful to show her appreciation. Sophia called her assistant, Clara. "Can you find the contact details of the driver named Daniel who worked for me yesterday?" she asked. Clara nodded quickly. "Of course, ma'am. He works with the Golden Route Transport Service. Do you want me to call him?" "Yes, tell him I would like to meet him at the office this afternoon," Sophia said. A few hours later, Daniel arrived at the office building. He was wearing his same clean uniform, his shoes polished and his calm smile still present. When he entered the lobby, everyone looked at him curiously. The staff already knew he was the man who had saved their company's biggest deal. News about the meeting had spread quickly. Sophia came out of her office to greet him personally. It was the first time she had done that for someone who wasn't part of her executive team. "Daniel, thank you for coming," she said warmly. "It's good to see you again, Sophia," Daniel replied politely. "I didn't expect another meeting so soon," Sophia smiled. "Yesterday, you didn't just save my business deal. You reminded me of something I had forgotten. You reminded me that real strength is not about position, but about character. I want to talk to you about something important." They walked into her office and she asked him to sit. Daniel sat carefully, still humble, though he looked comfortable. Sophia spoke gently. "Daniel, I've been thinking. My company is expanding in many countries, and we often face language barriers during meetings and projects. I want you to join our team as a full-time communication advisor. You'll help us with international clients and train our staff in cross-cultural understanding." Daniel's eyes widened slightly. "That's a big offer, Sophia. I'm not sure I'm qualified for such a position," he said honestly. Sophia shook her head. "You are more than qualified. You speak 9 languages fluently. You understand how people think and feel. That is something no degree can teach. I need someone like you on my team." Daniel looked thoughtful for a few seconds. "If you truly think I can be useful, I'll gladly accept the offer," he said with a kind smile. Sophia smiled back. "Welcome to Bright Mind Global, Daniel." Over the next few weeks, Daniel started working at the company. At first, some employees were surprised to see a former driver walking through the executive floors, attending meetings with foreign clients and advising senior managers. But it didn't take long for everyone to respect him. His knowledge and his ability to make people comfortable were remarkable. Daniel created language training sessions for the company staff. He taught them how to greet clients from different countries properly, how to avoid misunderstandings, and how to build trust through respect. Everyone enjoyed his calm voice and patient teaching style. Sophia often joined his sessions quietly, sitting in the back and watching. She admired how Daniel handled even the shyest employees, encouraging them to speak and learn without fear. There was something inspiring about the way he made everyone feel equal and valued. One afternoon, Sophia invited Daniel for lunch in the company cafeteria. They sat near the window where the sun fell gently on the table. "You've changed the energy of this place," she said. "People are smiling more. The office feels more human now." Daniel smiled. Maybe they just needed a reminder that respect makes everything easier. "Sometimes a kind word does more than a long meeting." Sophia nodded. "You're right. I think I was so focused on success that I forgot about simple kindness." Daniel looked at her kindly. "You're not alone in that. Many people forget it when life moves too fast. But the good thing is that you realized it." Sophia smiled softly. "You know, Daniel, when I saw you for the first time, I judged you without knowing you. I'm not proud of that." Daniel shook his head gently. "It happens. People often look at others and see only what is outside. But what matters most is what happens after we learn who they really are." Sophia looked down for a moment, then said, "You've taught me more in 1 week than I've learned in years of business." Daniel chuckled lightly. and you've shown me that people can change when they have an open heart." After lunch, they walked back to the office talking about their different life experiences. Sophia learned more about Daniel's past. He told her about his mother, who had been a teacher, and how she had inspired him to love learning. He explained how his father used to tell him that language is not only about words but also about understanding feelings. Sophia listened with deep interest. The more she knew about Daniel, the more she respected him. She realized that his humility came from strength, not weakness. Days passed, and Daniel's influence in the company kept growing. The investors from the billion-dollar deal visited again, and they were pleased to see that Daniel was now part of the executive team. Mr. Pierre said, "This company made a wise decision keeping him. He's the reason we trust your leadership even more." Sophia smiled proudly. "Yes, Daniel has become one of our most valuable team members." Later that evening, as everyone left the office, Sophia stood near the window again, watching the sunset. Daniel came by to say goodbye for the day. "You've worked hard today," she said. Daniel smiled. "So have you." Sophia looked thoughtful. "Do you ever think about going back to your old job as a translator?" Daniel smiled kindly. "Not really. I feel at peace where I am now. Sometimes life places us in unexpected places for a reason. Maybe this is where I'm meant to be for now." Sophia nodded. "I'm glad you're here. You remind me that success without kindness means nothing." Daniel replied softly, "And kindness without purpose can fade easily. The best balance is when both exist together." Sophia smiled. "That's a beautiful way to put it." That night, as Daniel drove home, he looked out of the car window and felt grateful. He had never imagined that one random driving assignment would change his life. He thought about his mother's words that had stayed with him since childhood. Respect others even when they don't respect you, because your worth does not depend on their opinion. He smiled to himself, feeling at peace. At the same time, Sophia sat in her office writing a note in her journal. She wrote, "Today I learned that wisdom wears many faces. Sometimes it comes dressed in a driver's uniform, speaking 9 languages of understanding and kindness." Weeks turned into months, and Daniel's presence in Brightmind Global became a blessing for the company. Every department he worked with saw positive change. Employees who once avoided meetings now spoke with confidence, and teams that used to misunderstand foreign clients were now handling communication smoothly. Sophia noticed that the company culture had grown warmer and friendlier, but success always comes with challenges. As Brightmind Global continued to grow, some people within the company began to feel jealous of Daniel. They couldn't accept that a man who had once been a driver was now sitting in meetings with top executives and international clients. One of them was Mr. Allen, the head of the marketing department. He was a smart man, but his pride often got in the way. One morning, during a meeting about a new partnership in Europe, Mr. Allen whispered to another manager, "I don't understand why Sophia trusts that man so much. He is just a driver who got lucky one day." Daniel overheard the comment, but he didn't react. He simply smiled and continued taking notes. Sophia, who was focused on the presentation, didn't notice the whisper, but she could sense a bit of tension in the room. After the meeting, Daniel approached Mr. Allen with his usual calm expression. "If there's something I can do to help your team with communication for the European partners, please let me know," he said kindly. Mr. Allen forced a smile. "Of course, Daniel. I'll let you know," he said, but his tone was cold. Sophia later heard small rumors that some employees were not happy with Daniel's quick rise in the company. She called Daniel to her office that afternoon. "I'm hearing that a few people are feeling uncomfortable with your position," she said gently. "I don't want this to affect you," Daniel smiled. "It's all right, Sophia. Not everyone understands change right away. Some people need time. I'll just keep doing my best," Sophia nodded. "You're handling this better than I would. Thank you for staying patient." Daniel replied, "Respect is the only answer to disrespect. If I let their words bother me, I'll lose focus on the real goal." Sophia admired his calm strength once again. She realized that Daniel's heart was as strong as his mind. A few days later, a major challenge came unexpectedly. The company had to finalize an urgent partnership deal with a new client from Spain. The deal was important because it would open the European market to Brightmind Global's new product line. Sophia asked Daniel to join the meeting to help with translation and cultural advice. However, the morning of the meeting, Daniel woke up with a mild fever. He called Sophia's assistant to say he might be late, When Sophia heard the news, she was worried but told him to take his time. The meeting began without him. The Spanish partners were polite but had some misunderstandings due to translation mistakes. The company's hired translator was new and made errors during the discussion. Sophia tried to stay calm, but she missed Daniel's presence. Just when things started to become confusing, the meeting room door opened and Daniel walked in, still looking a little tired but wearing his usual calm smile. "I apologize for being late," he said gently. Sophia stood up, surprised. "Daniel, you should be resting," she said. Daniel smiled. "I couldn't let you handle this without help. Let's finish this together." He greeted the Spanish clients in perfect Spanish. Their faces lit up instantly. They appreciated his effort and began speaking comfortably with him. Within minutes, Daniel cleared up all the confusion and explained the contract terms clearly. The tension disappeared and everyone started smiling again. Sophia watched quietly as Daniel handled the situation with professionalism and grace. Even while feeling unwell, he was focused and respectful. By the end of the meeting, the Spanish clients were fully satisfied, and the deal was secured. After they left, Sophia said softly, "Daniel, you shouldn't have come today." "You were sick?" Daniel shook his head gently. "I couldn't let the team down. The company trusted me and I had to give my best." Sophia smiled with admiration. "You've done more than your best. I'm proud of you." Over the next few days, the news of Daniel's dedication spread throughout the office. Many employees who had once doubted him began to see him differently. Even Mr. Allen started to respect him after realizing how valuable he was to the company. One afternoon, while Daniel was walking through the hallway, Mr. Allen stopped him. "Daniel, I owe you an apology," he said quietly. "I was wrong about you. You've earned every bit of the respect people give you." Daniel smiled warmly. "Thank you, Mr. Allen. It means a lot. I understand how you felt. Sometimes it takes time to see someone clearly." From that day, the negative feelings in the office began to fade. People worked together more smoothly, and Sophia's leadership became stronger with Daniel's support. One Friday evening, after everyone had left, Sophia sat in her office looking at the new partnership reports. Daniel knocked on the door and entered. "Everyone has gone home. You should rest too," he said with a kind smile. Sophia laughed softly. "I was about to leave. I was just reading the report from Spain." "You made it happen again, Daniel." Daniel looked modest. It was a team effort. Everyone played their part. Sophia looked at him thoughtfully. "You know, Daniel, I've learned something from you. You always talk about teamwork and respect, but you never talk about your own success. Why is that?" Daniel smiled gently. "Because success is never only ours. Every good thing we do involves others. When I help someone, I see it as a shared victory." Sophia nodded slowly. "That's a beautiful way to see life." Daniel looked around the office and said softly, "I used to dream of working in a place like this, but not because of the office or the title. I wanted to be in a place where people could learn from each other without judgment." "I think that's what you're building here now." Sophia looked touched. "I couldn't have done it without you. You've changed how I see leadership. You've taught me that power without empathy is empty." Daniel smiled kindly. "And empathy without strength can be weak. Both need each other to grow." Sophia stood up and extended her hand. "Thank you, Daniel, for reminding me what real leadership looks like." Daniel shook her hand firmly. "And thank you, Sophia, for giving me a chance when you could have ignored me." That evening, when Daniel left the building, he walked out into the quiet streets feeling peaceful. He didn't measure his worth by position or salary. He measured it by the difference he made in people's lives. Meanwhile, Sophia watched him leave through her office window. She remembered how she had once laughed at him without knowing who he truly was. Now she felt proud that she had learned from him instead. She whispered softly to herself, "Sometimes life sends teachers in unexpected forms." Months passed, and BrightMind Global continued to grow faster than ever. New partnerships came in from every part of the world. The company had entered markets in Asia, Africa, and Europe. Reporters and investors began to talk about how Sophia's company had become a model of success. But inside the company, everyone knew there was one person who had quietly helped build this change. And that person was Daniel. Sophia often thought about how her life had changed since the day she first met him. She had once been a proud and impatient leader who believed power came from position, but Daniel had taught her that true power came from understanding others. from respect and kindness. She had become calmer, wiser, and more thoughtful. Employees trusted her more now, and the company felt like a big family one morning. Sophia received an invitation to speak at a global business conference in Geneva. It was one of the biggest events in the corporate world. Leaders from all over the globe were invited to share their success stories. The organizers wanted her to speak about how she turned her company into one of the fastest-growing businesses in the world. Sophia decided to take Daniel along. She believed his experience and knowledge could help her again, especially since the conference would include leaders from many different countries and cultures. Daniel agreed happily. "It will be a good opportunity to learn more," he said with his calm smile. When they arrived in Geneva, the city looked beautiful. The streets were clean, and people spoke different languages everywhere they went. Daniel smiled as he heard the mix of voices. He could understand most of them. He greeted the hotel staff in French, thanked the driver in Italian, and ordered dinner in Arabic. Sophia laughed softly and said, "You make everyone smile wherever you go." Daniel replied kindly, "Language opens hearts. When people feel understood, they trust you more." The next morning, the conference hall was filled with business leaders, investors, and journalists. Sophia was scheduled to speak in the afternoon. She spent the morning reviewing her notes while Daniel helped her understand the backgrounds of some of the international guests. He explained small cultural details that made communication easier. When Sophia finally took the stage, she began confidently. She spoke about leadership, teamwork, and the power of respect. But in the middle of her talk, the lights in the hall flickered and the screen showing her presentation froze. The technical team rushed to fix it, but the system had crashed. The crowd began to murmur. Sophia tried to stay calm, but the delay made her nervous. The event organizers whispered that the backup files were stored in the main server, which was connected through a multilingual software system they couldn't fully understand. The technician in charge was from a different country and spoke limited English, which caused more confusion. Seeing the tension, Daniel quietly walked toward the control booth. He greeted the technician in his native language and asked about the issue. Within moments, he understood the problem and explained how to reset the system. He spoke to the team in German, then switched to French to coordinate with the hall manager. Within 10 minutes, the entire system was restored. When Sophia returned to the stage, the audience clapped in appreciation, thinking it was part of her presentation. She smiled and continued, feeling relieved. But she knew the real reason the problem was solved was Daniel's quick thinking and his gift of language. After her talk, people surrounded her, asking questions and praising her leadership. A well-known investor from Japan approached her and said, "Your speech was powerful, but what impressed me most was how your team handled the technical issue so calmly. That man who helped, he was extraordinary." Sophia smiled proudly. "That man is Daniel, my advisor and a true pillar of this company," she said. The investor nodded. "People like him are rare. I can see why your company succeeds. You respect talent no matter where it comes from." Later that evening, during the conference dinner, Sophia was invited to the main table with a few top business leaders. One of them was Mr. Liang, a famous billionaire from China who had been planning to sign a billion-dollar partnership deal with another company. He started a friendly conversation with Sophia. They discussed business growth, global communication, and leadership. Suddenly, during the talk, one of Mr. Liang's assistants whispered something in Mandarin. Sophia couldn't understand it, but she saw Daniel nearby and called him over. Daniel greeted Mr. Liang politely in perfect Mandarin, which surprised everyone at the table. Mr. Liang smiled widely. "You speak my language so well," he said happily. Daniel laughed lightly. "Languages help us build bridges, not walls," he replied. The assistant explained in Mandarin that there was a misunderstanding about the contract terms. Daniel listened carefully, translated both sides clearly, and found the error in the agreement. Because of his explanation, Mr. Liang realized that Brightmind Global's offer was actually fairer and more transparent than the one he had with another company. Right there at the dinner table, Mr. Liang smiled and said, "I think I will choose your company, Sophia. This man beside you has shown more honesty and understanding in 10 minutes than some partners show in years." Sophia was speechless for a moment. A few hours later, she signed a preliminary agreement worth over $1 billion. Everyone in the room congratulated her. After the event, she walked out with Daniel into the quiet streets of Geneva. The city lights reflected on the water, and there was a cool breeze in the air. Sophia turned to him and said softly, "You just saved the biggest deal of my career again." "I don't know how to thank you." Daniel smiled humbly. "You already did. You gave me a chance when you didn't have to. That's worth more than any deal." Sophia looked thoughtful. "You know, Daniel, when I first met you, I was proud and blind. I judged you without knowing who you really were. Now I see how wrong I was. You've taught me more than any business book ever could." Daniel looked at her kindly. "We all learn in our own time. The important thing is that we grow after we learn." When they returned home, Sophia called an urgent meeting with the board of directors. She announced that Daniel would be promoted to the position of Global Cultural Director. Everyone clapped. The same people who once doubted him now stood up to congratulate him with respect and admiration. Daniel thanked everyone politely. "This company gave me a place to grow, and I will do everything I can to help it grow too," he said with a warm smile. After the meeting, Sophia met him privately. "You've earned this, Daniel," she said proudly. "I can't imagine this company without you now." Daniel smiled. "Thank you, Sophia. But remember, every success belongs to all of us. It's teamwork that makes everything possible." Sophia nodded. "You're right, as always." Years later, Brightmind Global became one of the most trusted companies in the world. Daniel continued to help the company build connections across different countries. He trained hundreds of employees in language and cultural understanding. Under Sophia's and Daniel's leadership, Brightmind became not just a business but a global symbol of unity and respect. Whenever Sophia gave speeches, she often ended them with a story. She would say, "Once I laughed at a man because I thought he was just a driver, but that man became the reason my company succeeded. He taught me that wisdom wears many faces, and kindness is the greatest language of all." And Daniel, who had started as a humble driver, remained the same gentle soul who believed that respect was more powerful than pride.